Hello, everyone. Welcome to our extended disc 15-minute webinar. Today's topic is taking the KISS approach to disc. So obviously it's about kissing up to your disc trainer, right? And being
Obviously. And food always works the best.
Food works definitely for me, but just kidding if you just joined us. We are doing the KISS approach to disc, and we're going to talk about what KISS actually means. My name is Christina, and I'm the training director here at Extended Disc, and joining me today is my colleague, Amy Lipinski, senior trainer here at Extended Disc.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. As always, we will be recording this webinar, so you'll find it on our YouTube channel. You can share, you can review it. It will also eventually end up on our website. As much as we love your questions, unfortunately, again, because of time, we can't take them live. So put any questions in the question box, and we will promise to follow up with you.
So what exactly is KISS? KISS is actually an acronym that was designed and created by the U.S. Navy back in the 1960s. And it's a design principle. There's variations of the KISS acronym. Some people say keep it simple and straightforward. Sorry, I'm noticing a typo. Or keep it simple, stupid, right? For those of us who might be more direct styles. And the principle really states that most systems work best if they are kept simple rather than being made complicated. And when we think about the DISC model, simplicity is that key to our DISC model, and also in keeping DISC in practice. The easier that something is for your clients to understand and use, the more likely they will adopt it and apply it. And once they've adopted it and see the benefits of using DISC in the workplace and in their personal lives, it just becomes part of who they are and how they interact with other people.
So for those of you that have followed our webinars, gone through our trainings, went through our materials, don't be rolling your eyes out there. Here is our 4 steps to effective communication. And we're presenting it here because if you want the KISS approach to DISC, this is it. It helps you. I think one of the challenges for a lot of us as DISC trainers is designing training, whether, and oftentimes the most difficult piece is the application, how to apply what you've actually learned. And that 4 steps to effective communication that you see here has the application piece built right into it. And this is where you reap the rewards and benefits of DISC. So the 4 steps, it can be tailored or modified to any of your audience, whether your audience, is a sales group, a leadership group, medical field, education, etc. And Extended DISC, our materials are founded on our 4 steps to effective communication principle. And I think the most critical aspect is that our report itself is based on these 4 steps. Now, whether you as a coach consciously use these 4 steps or whether your participants as they go through the report realize that these are based on the 4 steps, you don't have to, because it's all simply built in there. So not to beat a dead horse, there's my saying for the day. I'm just going to briefly, I promise you, cover the 4 steps. So first off, step 1 is, what is DIS and C? We all have to agree upon how we describe someone who is a D style, an I style, an S style, and a C style. Step 2 is, how do we become more self-aware of how we show up and how others view our style. And there are many, I think, assessment tools out there that end at step 2. They do a good or a great job at kind of helping us build self-awareness. But if you're talking about application, you need to move to step 3, which is identifying the main DISC styles of others. And that's where I think the DISC model itself is so powerful. All it is, all we are asking people to do is to identify one of the 4 main behavioral styles. That's pretty simple, right? And then ultimately to the application piece, how do we now adjust our own behaviors appropriately to improve that interaction and communication? So in keeping the message simple, Amy's going to highlight some key takeaways as DISC trainers, we would want our participants to understand in a DISC workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the great things about the extended disc tool is the power that lies within the tool. It's simple, yet there's depth to the reports. And oftentimes there can be so much data that it feels overwhelming. And I know for my own particular style, I have difficulty in saying, well, what don't I share? Because I just want to share everything, all the wonderful nuggets of information, right? But sometimes that might be too much. So when Christina and I and our other trainers in the office think about the key points, what do we want people to walk away from our sessions knowing? What are those main ideas that we want to stick with them? And the first thing is that DISC does not predict your success. DISC predicts how you prefer to do things, how you prefer to go about your day. There is no one best style. They all have strengths, they all have areas to improve in. And your DISC style impacts how you identify others. We often say we see the world through our own lens, and that lens is how we're identifying others. And do not overuse your strengths. Oftentimes, we call this that TOO effect, the TOO. It's a way in which we overuse our strengths to the point that they become a weakness. Behavior does not always equal intention. We often judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their behaviors. And Christina is going to give you some examples of what that means. And using the right style at the right time. Going through your 4 steps is going to let you understand how best to navigate around the diamond and use the right style at the right time. What motivates one person might actually demotivate the other person. And most importantly, don't change who you are, change your behaviors. Some of you might be saying that's too much, so I'm going to pass it to Christina to simplify it more.
So that was the S and C style slide. We're going to move on now to, for all you D's and I's out there. In the spirit of this webinar, the topic being, taking the KISS approach to DISC, we've narrowed some of those key points that were listed that Amy talked about even further. So let's just say, okay, just give me a few points. What are my end goals for doing this training? What do I want people to walk out of my training knowing? So the first one is DISC predicts how you prefer to do things. As Amy said, oftentimes we don't have the opportunity to talk about how we interact with others, but if I were, as a manager, able to be given a report that shows that my employee is an S style. So S styles tend to be amiable, but they tend to be more reserved. They focus more on relationships. And here I am, this D style, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's just get it done,
Mm-hmm.
But if I understand that and I can predict how my S-style employee shows up, then that gives me a lot of information of how I can better interact with that employee. So not only does it help you understand other people, but it can share information for yourself to understand how you show up under pressure, how you tend to make decisions, how you tend to lead or sell. So DISC predicts how you prefer to do things. The next one is there is no one best style. DISC, the model itself, carries no value judgment. It doesn't know if you're a nice person. It doesn't know if you're president, of your organization. It doesn't say that any one style is better or worse than the other. What it does say is that every style, regardless of the role that you're in, you bring your strengths and you bring your development areas. The next one, behaviors don't always equal intention. So I kind of forgot, I've been a little loopy lately, just coming back from vacation. But actions, what we say is actions are essentially neutral. The act of doing something is essentially neutral. It is our own perception of that action that give it value. So one thing about intention. So the story I like to tell is I have Irene, who is my iStyle. And, you know, Irene is just this wonderful iStyle, positivity, gets a little disorganized. She runs into Sam, her S-Style coworker she hasn't seen in a while, and she's like, oh my gosh, Sam, we've got to catch up. Let's go have coffee. I'm going to call you. I'm running late for a meeting. Let's have coffee on Tuesday. I know I have time. And she runs off. Well, Tuesday came. There was no call. And what happened here is intention versus what Sam perceived. Irene had every intention of having coffee with Sam. She wanted to. It just didn't happen. And so the next time she thought, well, it could happen next time, right? For Sam, as an S-Style, Sam heard everything as a promise. You're going to give me a call, and I promise we're going to have coffee on Tuesday. So even though Irene's intention wasn't a promise, that's how it was perceived by somebody else. So we need to remember that. I think, what was the example? If you're sitting in a room and you're just someone who's just quietly listening and processing what's going on in the meeting,
doesn't necessarily mean that you're cold or distant or not social or checked out. It just could be you're absorbing the information,
right?
Taking
So
it in.
We are seeing actions and behaviors through our own lenses. And the last, but just as important, is don't try to change who you are. So meaning that the intent and purpose of this extended DISC assessment is not to fix you. You're not broken to start with. The goal of it is for you to have more situational awareness, not change who you are, but change your behavior. So if you're, let's just say, that wonderful D style and you're about to run into your C style colleague's office with all these great ideas that you need to get done today, you might just take a few seconds and say, ooh, C style colleague.
Maybe I better schedule a meeting, even if it's just I'll be there in 10 minutes, but schedule that meeting.
Even if you have to send an email saying, can I talk to you in 10 minutes? I'm coming in your office in 10 minutes. At least you've made some adjustments so that that C style is more likely to respond positively. So the end goal is know your style, own it, and change your behaviors when appropriate.
Absolutely. So what are some next steps then? I feel for all our animal activists out there, we do love animals. We're not trying to really, literally, figuratively, we're figuratively speaking about beating the horse to death. But we talk about our 4 steps to effective communication so frequently because it's easier said than done. It takes practice. Know that it takes practice. It's going to take practice, as you know, in reading reports for those of us who are coaches. It takes practice observing and identifying the DISC styles of others. And we never do it to pigeonhole or label anybody. We do it so we have a better idea of how to adjust. And making those slight adjustments, often brief and temporary, take practice. It takes patience and practice in applying it, and also just in paying attention to what was the difference, what was the impact that that adjustment made, because that will give you more motivation to continue those adjustments.
And practice what you preach. That's very important.
Absolutely.
We ourselves as coaches must constantly practice to the part, hopefully, where it just comes naturally to us. So in the famous words of Confucius, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. So be consciously aware of that. We have a lot of information that's valuable to our participants, but if we can keep it as user-friendly and simple as possible, they are more likely to buy into it, and they are more likely to use it. So thank you guys for joining us today. We do have another webinar coming up. It is a 1-hour webinar, and it's focused on identifying the styles of others. So that is step 3 in our 4-step process. And if you do need HRCI or SHRM recertification units, you will earn 1 for that day. And we have that coming up at 10 a.m. on July 17th. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you.